Hello everybody, my name is Rita Sanchez and I'm part of the MMIS 691 course that we've taken this semester, and I am here to present the final project around the challenges that are faced when there's uncertainty of data and visualization. So with that, we can go ahead and get started. And just to kind of rewind us throughout the whole semester, we've learned that visualization is key and critical to an organization so that they can understand their growth, their strategic vision, and where to best employ and put their data evaluation and their data analysis into practice so that they can become a better organization and help make the right decisions. So with the visualizations and with understanding the data and getting the right metrics around that and the right measurements and the right disciplines comes challenges and obstacles. And the key focus of my paper is the challenge around the uncertainty of data through visualization. So as we talk about what the uncertainty of data is, some of the factors around that is there's unknown information around that data. It could be that it's unknown, it could be that it's imperfect, it could be that there's just no understanding around it. There's also challenges with quantifying the data, so that's another big obstacle around the uncertainty of data. The data can be variable. I mean, it can work from a range perspective, so such as we see data and the weather, and we try to understand the weather maps, and we try to understand what the projections of the weather and the climate will look like. There's uncertainty around that. There could also be errors in the data. Some of those errors could occur during the input of the data. Some of those errors could occur during the extraction. And so in addition to that, when it comes to data that is entered through users or that it is captured through a view, an expression of the user, well then there's a human factor around that and human reading, so there's also some unclarity around that. So what are some of the challenges that we need to overcome, and why is it that there's challenges around uncertainty of data? Well, having data that's uncertain creates complexity. The data becomes complex, as well as helping visualize that, render it into a form that a user can easily understand, brings its complexity. Data can be presented in different ways, so therefore there's some challenges around that. It propagates. It also adds a dimension to the visualization that is different than without having uncertain data around. And, it tends to dominate the certainty, in which you can then, just imagine that someone who has to show certainty is a lot easier for them than when they have to pose uncertainty around that. Some of the don'ts that we want to make sure we avoid as we're preparing these visualizations is don't over-explain it, because then you may confuse the end user that is reading that data. Definitely don't put clutter around that visualization, because then it's not as effective. People might not understand the readings around that, and they may feel there's information overload. And make sure that when you design it that you are not assuming that there is no data uncertainty, or that you're not assuming or you're just ignoring that there is uncertainty in the data, because really then it's not effective, and you may have some challenges where people may make the wrong decisions based on the data that has been presented, which wasn't complete for them. Just quickly, some of the domains that it can exist in and that we probably see it more prevalent in is, the medical field, the science field. Definitely climate and weather is is one we see on a daily basis. Economics is another one where uncertainty of data is pretty prevalent in, and as well as geographical. So just a couple of few graphs here to indicate those different domains. So there has to be a way that we can make sure that we present the uncertainty of data in a visualization accurately, effectively, in ways that users will be able to benefit from it and use it to make sure they can make the appropriate decisions. And so the key is that we build a framework that is needed around that data to help explain it, to help get the user to understand it, to get familiar with it, and to be able to make the appropriate decisions. So some of those techniques include, quantifying that visualization. It includes helping create descriptive statistics around the visualization, making the data measurable, which is really important from a tangible perspective, as well as creating a framework that is there for the long term. So it's not just meeting a specific need or a specific domain, but it goes ahead and supports multiple fields of that. And so from a goal perspective and an end result is that we're improving the confidence level of that visualization for the user to feel comfortable and be able to use it. As we talk about the challenges to overcome, here's just a few graphs to give different indications of the different ways that we could display this, display the uncertainty around it. So the first frame right here, the first graph, shows just basically here is for California employment. Here's the numbers of, the 2005 to 2010 employment numbers growth. And then the second graph, or the graph B, really shows what is, the indication of the growth that is estimated. And what you'll find is that it has dotted points around it to show this is the estimate portion of it. Whereas graph C shows a little bit more of the possible growth. So you see the expansion here in this area, and C that talks about, well, here's all the potential possible growth around it. Where in D, it shows much more narrow view to show the likely growth. So again, just different variations of how to be able to display uncertainty of data. From a flow perspective, when we look at what is the live flow of data as it's being captured and as it's being transitioned and transformed to then be able to be rendered and put into a visualization, we understand that the raw data, so the initial capture and the initial rawness of that data, feeds what the uncertainty of that data is. So it's really focused around the raw data building the uncertainty. As that data goes through the flow of transformation, which means we filter the data, we're mapping the data, we're rendering the data, we're packaging it so that we can create the visualization around it, then the uncertainty shifts to the visualization, because that's how we need to now overcome that challenge and that obstacle in the visualization to make sure that we can explain the uncertainty. So that flow transitions from the raw data through the visualization process. So as we look at where those obstacles in each data point can occur, looking through the flow, we understand it happens at acquisition, which is, at the initial acquisition of the data. When we talk about the raw data, it works through the transformation, whether it's the filtering, the mapping, and the rendering. And then in the end, the last obstacle is the visualization and being able to display that data in such a way that it is understood by the user. It helps them make the right decisions. So from an uncertainty perspective, in the paper, I talk about two specific ones. The first one is the epistemic. And the epistemic, what it focuses on is measuring that data. So being able to build the measurements and help quantifying that data and the measures so that we can better understand it and we can reduce that unclarity around the data. The aleatoric is more focused on statistics and running simulations, running the models, so that we're able to see the different results every time that simulation runs, and then build statistic around that, and then therefore shows the different probabilities of that data. So we're ready to start visualizing the data. We're ready to start understanding the uncertainty around the data and creating the right visual that helps express what that uncertainty of data is. So what are the things that we're going to make sure that in our visualization we incorporate? We're going to make sure we have definition around that data. We know it, we understand it, it no longer is unknown. We need to be honest about the data. So it's not about ignoring the uncertainty. It's about being honest and showing what that uncertainty is. We present it in a way that it's understood to the user, that they are easily able to make decisions around it. We're going to avoid cluttering that data or information overload. We're going to definitely quantify and measure that data, and we will create the frameworks and the techniques that will help us make sure we present and package it appropriately, so that in the end we can improve the confidence level for the user so they can make the appropriate decisions. So if there are any questions, please make sure you post them to the forum, and I'll be happy to answer them. And again, thank you very much, and good luck on your future terms.